The studio lights were bright, almost blinding. Meghan Markle stepped onto the Graham Norton show stage with a calm, collected expression. She wore a sharp designer outfit, simple but strong. The audience clapped loudly, but the energy felt forced. The cheers echoed, but there was something cold underneath. Meghan smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Graham Norton stood up to greet her. "Meghan Markle, everyone," he said with his usual charm. He smiled wide, but there was tension in the corner of his mouth. The other guests, two Hollywood actors and a well-known British journalist, looked on with interest. Their body language careful, even stiff. Meghan took her seat, crossing her legs slowly, a picture of grace under pressure. At first, the conversation felt like any other celebrity interview. Graham joked about Meghan's new podcast, her Netflix deal, and life in California. The audience laughed, and Meghan responded politely, but her answers were short. Her posture remained upright, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Then came the turn. "You've been a bit busy lately, haven't you, Meghan?" Graham said, voice light but eyes sharp. The royal split, the Oprah interview, the media headlines. And now, a podcast. What's next? A political career? The room chuckled nervously. Meghan's smile tightened. "I'm focused on telling stories that matter," she replied calmly. "That's always been the goal. But stories can be powerful, right?" Graham said, tilting his head. "Some might say too powerful." "You've said a lot over the years. Do you ever worry that people think you're using your voice to well control?" The narrative. It was a soft attack, hidden behind charm. Meghan paused. For a second, her eyes locked with his. You could feel the temperature in the room drop. "I think people are tired of narratives built for them," she said slowly. "I speak for myself. Others can choose to listen or not." A flicker of movement on the journalist's face. She was watching closely now, sensing something building. Then came the real blow. Graham leaned back and said with a cheeky smile, "So, Meghan, is there anything you won't do in the name of liberation?" The room fell still. Few awkward chuckles came from the audience, but most sat frozen. Meghan's face changed instantly. The smile dropped. Her body leaned forward slightly, like a fighter preparing to move. "Liberation is a word people use when they've never had to fight for anything," she said. Her voice was calm but cut, like glass. "It's not a costume, it's not a slogan. It's survival." The audience didn't know how to react. Some clapped hesitantly. Others just sat wide-eyed. Graham's smile cracked. "It's just a bit of fun, Meghan," he said. "Quickly, you know, comedy and all. Funny how my life becomes a joke for people who've never had theirs torn apart in public." She said, her voice quieter now, but more powerful. "Tell me, would you ask a man that question? A prince?" Dead silence. One of the actors on the couch shifted uncomfortably. The journalist tapped her cue cards. Graham looked suddenly unsure, his eyes scanning the camera crew behind the scenes. "We're just trying to keep it light," he said, voice a bit shaky now. "No," Meghan said, standing up. "Let's not. Let's talk about how people like me are told to smile through insult after insult because it makes for good ratings. Let's talk about how every room I walk into becomes a question. Do I belong? Am I allowed to speak?" She was now standing fully, hands at her sides. The cameras kept rolling. The producers behind the stage were frozen, waiting for a signal. "You want a joke?" Meghan said, facing the audience directly. "Here it is. The joke is on anyone who still thinks silence is safety." Okay. Then she turned and walked off stage. Gasps rippled through the room. One audience member tried to clap, then stopped, unsure. The lights dimmed. The music faded awkwardly. Behind the scenes, the control room exploded into chaos. Online, the moment was already going viral. The clip was clipped, looped, tweeted, posted, analyzed. The headline would hit within the hour. Meghan Markle walks out of Graham Norton interview after explosive on-air clash. but no headline could capture what had just happened. Something had broken. And not just on the stage. The clip of Meghan Markle walking off the Graham Norton show aired for less than 45 seconds, but within 5 minutes, it was everywhere. On Twitter, hashtags exploded. Hashtag Meghan walks out. Hashtag Graham under fire. Hashtag liberation is survival. Millions watched the clip on loop. Meghan's sharp glare, her cutting words, the deafening silence that followed. Backstage, chaos reigned. Producers were shouting into earpieces. Graham sat in his chair trying to maintain composure, but his hands trembled slightly. One of the actors leaned toward him and whispered, "Did you know she was going to do that?" "I know," Graham said, eyes fixed on the floor. "I thought we were just ... talking." In the hallway outside the studio, Meghan stood alone. A single producer followed her with a clipboard, breathless. "Meghan, we can cut that. We can edit the whole segment. We just need a statement." Meghan turned to her eyes, calm now. "Let it air." But let it air. She walked out of the building. Cameras were already outside. Paparazzi surged forward. Flashes exploded like gunfire. Meghan said nothing. She got into a waiting black SUV and disappeared into the night. By morning, the world had changed. The UK tabloids pounced. The Daily Express called her a staged martyr. The Sun questioned her mental state. But something was different this time. Major international outlets, the New York Times, Al Jazeera, The Guardian ran think pieces. The interview that broke the format read one headline. Others called it a modern Rosa Parks moment. CNN ran a split-screen panel, Meghan on one side, members of Parliament on the other. Why is a former royal being allowed to hijack British media? One MP snapped. "She didn't hijack anything," countered a journalist. "She responded to a question and air with honesty." "That's not hijacking. That's live television." Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., the White House press secretary was asked about the incident. "The First Lady supports any woman who speaks out against public humiliation and institutional bias," she replied. But something deeper was surfacing. Whispers of an old connection. A leaked intelligence memo began circulating among journalists. Subject: M. Markle, known association with Op Helix, Prague classified level 3. No one knew what Op Helix meant, but the timing couldn't be ignored. Some claimed it was fake. Others weren't so sure. Back in London, Graham Norton issued a statement on social media. "Last night's episode took an unexpected turn. Meghan's words were powerful, and I respect her right to speak her truth. We'll be airing the episode in full, unedited." But the damage or the awakening was already done. Meanwhile, in a secure building somewhere outside Brussels, a man watched the Meghan clip again and again. His screen was filled with security footage, facial recognition software, and deep intel scans. He was a former MI6 operative codename, Thorn, now contracted by an international oversight agency. He didn't smile, didn't blink. He pressed pause on Meghan's final line. "You want a joke? The joke is on anyone who still thinks silence is safety." Thorn leaned back, staring into the dark. "This wasn't random," he muttered. Picked up a secure phone. "Activate Echo List." All of it. Markle just went hot. Across the ocean, Meghan sat at a quiet kitchen table in Montecito. The blinds were shut. Her phone was off. "Prince?" Harry stood across from her, holding a mug of tea, his face pale. "You said it," he whispered. "You really said it." "I didn't plan to," she said softly, "but I meant every word." There was a knock at the door. Not loud, not fast. 3 short taps. Then silence. Meghan and Harry froze. Harry stepped forward slowly, cautious. He opened the door. Standing there was a woman in a dark coat, her eyes covered with large sunglasses. She handed Meghan a small envelope and said nothing. Then she turned and walked away. Meghan opened it. Inside was a photo, black and white, grainy. A group of people standing in front of what looked like an embassy. In the center, unmistakable. Face her own, but younger. With a symbol drawn over the image, a circle with a single slash. Below it, in neat typewritten letters off helix, reactivated Meghan's hands began to shake. Harry stepped closer. What is that? Meghan looked up. A secret, she said. One I buried a long time ago. And outside, hidden in a black SUV parked across the street, someone else was watching. Its camera, microphone, tracking every movement. Because Meghan Markle's walk-off wasn't just television. It was the trigger. The photo stayed on the kitchen table all night. Harry didn't sleep. Meghan didn't speak. They just sat to people surrounded by silence, memory, and a growing storm. By morning, headlines had shifted again. Is Meghan Markle a threat to national security? What is Op Helix? The shadow code behind the walk-off. Why are intelligence agencies watching a duchess? Newsrooms across the world were scrambling. Journalists hunted for details. No one could explain the photo. No one could find a record of Op Helix. And yet, more evidence began to surface. A grainy video from 2012 showed Meghan at a closed-door conference in Prague. She was listed under a different name. Her badge said, Cultural Affairs Delegate, Northwestern Institute. No one remembered this institute existing. Theories spread like wildfire. Was Meghan involved in a covert diplomacy mission? Did she witness something explosive overseas? Was the royal family hiding more than we knew? In London, Buckingham Palace broke its silence. A press release read, Her Grace, the Duchess of Sussex, has not represented the Crown in any international negotiations since her official exit. Any implication otherwise is categorically false. But intelligence circles said something else. Across MI5, CIA, and private black sites, whispers about Echo List intensified. Thorne, the ex-operative watching from Brussels, received new coordinates. The activation of Op Helix triggered a cascade. Old files were opened. Forgotten missions were revisited. And all of them circled back to Prague. He studied Meghan's movements over the last decade. Speeches, travels, unlisted meetings. None of this fits, he muttered, pacing. She was just a royal. Then she wasn't. Then she walks off a show and the world catches fire. He tapped on an encrypted file. The name of a mission appeared. Prague Initiative Echo. Burn agents present. Redacted civilian witness. MMO37, that code was her. Meghan Markle MO37. She hadn't just witnessed something. She had been recorded giving testimony, and then her name was wiped. Back in California, Meghan was making calls. The photo, the knock, the envelope, none of it was accidental. She reached a secure number from a burner phone. It rang twice. Then a woman's voice answered, Hello, Meghan. I was expecting this. Meghan's voice was calm but sharp. They know. Of course they know. You made the world look. You sent the photo. No, but someone's cleaning house. Op Helix was never meant to survive the decade. What do they want from me now? Meghan asked. The voice paused. They don't want you. They want silence. Harry looked at her, confused. Meghan hung up. He whispered, What did she mean by cleaning house? He looked at him carefully. It means someone else is going to die soon. That night, another alert shook the world. A journalist from The Guardian, the same woman who had been on Graham's panel, was found dead in her London flat. Initial reports called it an overdose. But those who knew her swore she was clean. She had tweeted a single line before her death. If this reaches 1,000 retweets, I release the Prague files. It hit 23,000 retweets within minutes, but the files never came. The link she posted led to a dead page. Thorne saw it all from his command center. He zoomed in on the screen. She had it, he whispered. She had the file. He turned to a young analyst. Track everyone who contacted her in the last 72 hours. Markle's name shows up, we bring her in." The analyst hesitated. "That could cause diplomatic trouble." Thorne shook his head. "We're past diplomacy. This is survival." Meanwhile, Meghan stood in her garden staring at the ocean. She remembered Prague, a hotel basement, a translator crying, a folder marked classified organ harvest protocol, Eastern Bloc. She wasn't supposed to see it, but she had. The camera had been on. That's what they buried. What they wanted her to forget. But now the world was remembering for her. She turned to Harry. "If I disappeared, don't look for me." Harry's voice broke. "What are you talking about?" Meghan looked into the distance, her voice low. "I opened the door too wide. And now the past is walking through." Far away, someone watched her from a drone. Coordinates confirmed. Target MMO37. Phase 2. Initiate. The world changed in 72 hours. TV panels screamed theories. News anchors barely kept pace. Meghan's walk-off had become something else, something far beyond celebrity drama. Words like covert mission, surveillance, and state. Cover-up were now common in headlines once meant for movie premieres and royal gossip. In Washington, D.C., a Senate subcommittee met in secret. A senator from Virginia slammed a file on the desk. This is no longer about optics. This is about national security. On the screen behind him was a still image of Meghan Markle leaving. The Graham Norton show. The photo had been enhanced. In her hand was a crumpled envelope, same envelope shown in the leaked footage. Marked with a stamp, UK MOFA classified. "Is this real?" the senator demanded. The intelligence official nodded, confirmed. That envelope was never meant to resurface. It belonged to Operation Helix, closed in 2013 after the Prague inquiry. Closed, the senator scoffed. Yet, here we are. In London, MI5 scrambled. Their director, Charles Hemsworth, stood facing a war room of analysts and agents. "We've had 2 deaths linked to this leak. A journalist in London. Czech operative found burned inside a warehouse in Ostrava. This is not a coincidence." He pointed to the board. Target MMO37 connection. Operation Helix Prague 2013 status. Civilian operative. Unknown, someone whispered. "You think she remembers everything?" Hemsworth replied coldly. "She remembers enough to be dangerous." Back in California, Meghan and Harry prepared for something they couldn't name. They had sent their children away. Security was tightened. Lawyers were on standby. But none of it felt like it would matter. Meghan stood in front of a mirror, staring at herself. "I'm not who they think I am," she whispered. Harry touched her shoulder gently. "Then who are you?" She paused. "I'm someone who saw too much, someone they forgot to erase." Suddenly, her phone buzzed, a private message with no name, just a location. Holland Park, 3 a.m. Bring nothing. Meghan stared at it. The number had been dead for over a decade. She once called it the ghost line. It belonged to the only man who could confirm what happened in Prague. She turned to Harry. "I have to go." "No," he said firmly. "Not alone, you can't come. They'll follow you. This isn't your fight anymore." Harry's jaw clenched. "It's always been my fight. Ever since I watched them destroy my mother." Meghan looked at him for a long time. Then she handed him a USB drive. "If I don't return by dawn, leak this." "What is it?" he asked. She said just one word. Proof, 3 a.m., Holland Park, London. Fog hung low. A figure in a dark coat waited under the trees. Meghan approached, heart pounding. "Late," the man said. She stopped. Her breath was visible in the cold. "You were supposed to be dead," she replied. "So were you." He handed her a folder sealed in black wax. Inside were photographs, signatures, audio transcripts, names of diplomats, spies, doctors, evidence of illegal trials, organ trafficking, and political silencing, all buried under Op Helix. "They buried this so deep even the crown doesn't know anymore," he said. Meghan's hands trembled as she flipped through it. I testified. She whispered, I remember now. The girl. She was only 15. And you stopped them? That's why they wiped you. But someone archived this someone who believed you'd need it one day. Suddenly, headlights flashed. A black SUV screeched into the park. Men in suits jumped out at MI5. Run! The man shouted, pushing her behind a tree. Gunfire lit. The night he was hit. Meghan ducked and bolted, the folder pressed to her chest. She ran through the trees, vaulting a fence into a dark alley. Her phone buzzed again. Exit through street. Margaret's safe house prepared. A driver waited near a bakery van. He threw open the door. Get in. Meghan jumped in just as bullets tore through the taillight. The driver hit the gas. They sped through the sleeping city. Meghan sat shaking, her mind flashing through images: the crying girl, the translator's scream, the lab coat stained with blood. She turned to the driver. Who are you? He looked ahead, expression unreadable. Someone who still believes in truth. Hours later, the safe house door locked behind her. Meghan opened the folder one last time. The final page showed a signed authorization. Operation Helix termination order signed by P.R. Windsor, her breath caught. Prince Richard Windsor, her brother-in-law, and the future King of England. The truth was bigger than her, and now it was war. The silence in the safe house was heavy. Meghan sat alone at a wooden table, the black folder spread open in front of her. The cheap light bulb overhead flickered, casting jagged shadows over words that now wouldn't stop echoing in her head. Operation Helix. Richard Windsor. Termination order. Her hands trembled. Not from fear, from clarity. From finally remembering what had been stolen from her. In the corner of the room sat a dusty typewriter. Old, mechanical, British. Just like the ghosts she was now chasing. The door creaked open. The driver, her unnamed contact, entered, now wearing a headset. They know you're alive, he said. There's chatter out of Langley and GCHQ. They're calling this a breach of Crown intelligence. Meghan didn't look up. Good, he frowned. Good. She finally turned to him. If they know I'm alive, they'll make mistakes. He studied her face for a moment, then nodded. You'll need to go dark. I won't, she said. What do you mean? I'm going public. The man stepped forward sharply. That would be suicide. Meghan stood, straightened her coat, and picked up the USB drive she had handed Harry hours ago. Not if I control the narrative. Who would even air this? He asked. Meghan smiled bitterly. Only someone who hates the crown more than I do. Later that night, in a private broadcast studio in Berlin, a call connected. The logo. On the wall, read, Al Jazeera investigates. An anchor appeared on screen.com. Precise, dangerous. I was told you had documents, the anchor said in Arabic. Meghan responded in clear, steady English. I have more than that. I have the names, the audio, the cover-ups. I have the truth behind Prague. Behind the death of Noura al-Masri, the girl who died in custody under British watch. And I have evidence that the future king signed off on her silencing. There was a pause. The anchor leaned forward. Do you have proof? Meghan held the black folder up to the camera. More than enough to start a fire. The anchor nodded slowly, then let it burn. In Buckingham Palace, a crisis team gathered. Prince Richard sat at the head of the table, polished, unshaken. But beneath the table, his foot tapped nervously. She's alive, he asked. The aide nodded. And broadcasting soon. He didn't blink. Can it be stopped? The MI5 director shook his head. We've tried. She went off-grid hours ago. We've lost the drive, the courier, and 2 agents. Richard's eyes narrowed. Then we changed the story. How we make her unstable, emotional. A danger to herself. But she has the documents, someone whispered. Richard? leaned in, calm as a snake. Then we tell the world they're fake. The next morning, headlines flooded the globe. Breaking: Meghan Markle tied to foreign espionage ring. Leak claims Duchess may be mentally unwell following trauma. Royal family distances itself from Meghan amidst scandal. Talk shows buzzed. Experts argued. Royal spokespeople issued vague statements about disappointment and ongoing review. But the damage had already begun to backfire. Social media exploded with questions. Hashtag, who is Noura? Hashtag, what is Helix? Hashtag, why are they afraid? Then came the video. Al Jazeera posted it with one line: the footage the palace doesn't want you to see. The world clicked. The screen faded in. A dark room, a girl 15 years old, sobbing in Arabic, restrained to a metal chair. A blurred-out interrogator shouted questions. English, then Czech, then back again. A female voice, Meghan's off-screen, begging them to stop. Then silence. The screen cut to documents, audio files, a signed letter from Prince Richard. The operation name, Helix. The name Neuro circled in red. The reaction was instant. Protests broke out in London, Los Angeles, and Dubai. International. Human rights lawyers called for formal investigations. And Meghan Markle, she disappeared again. In a high-security meeting inside NATO headquarters, the Secretary General stared at the screen. "This is no longer a media issue," he said. "It's a diplomatic emergency." A U.S. intelligence officer leaned forward. "If she leaks the full Helix data dump, it could expose joint operations from the UK. The U.S. and the UAE going back 15 years. So what do we do?" someone asked. The officer hesitated. "Bring her in." The room went quiet. Another voice spoke, darker and colder. "Or shut her down." Meanwhile, in an underground station outside Geneva, Meghan waited. Beside her sat a woman in a blue coat, sharp, quiet, and familiar. "I saw you once," Meghan said. "In Prague." The woman gave a faint smile. "You were the only one who didn't look away." Meghan nodded. "Are you ready?" The woman opened. A black laptop. The full Helix database. All the names, all the payoffs. Everything. Meghan took a deep breath. "Then let's end this." The streets of Geneva were quiet. Too quiet. Inside an abandoned embassy-turned-safe house, Meghan stood over a table, crowded with surveillance feeds. Each screen showed a different angle of the perimeter. Cars parked too perfectly. Men in casual jackets pretending not to listen to their earpieces. "They found us," she whispered. Across from her, the woman in the blue coat, codenamed Sora, didn't flinch. "They were always going to," Sora said. "But the dump is complete. The files are already in the hands of 6 independent outlets." "Will they publish?" Meghan asked. Sora smiled faintly. "After tonight, they won't have a choice." Suddenly, one of the screens flashed red. A van approached the building. Slowly, deliberately. Meghan stepped back. "How long do we have?" Sora checked her watch. 10 minutes. Maybe less. At that same moment, inside a secure room at GCHQ, London, panic unfolded behind closed doors. The Helix data dump was live. Crypted copies of the full operation names, transactions, orders had reached The Guardian, The New York Times, and Der Spiegel. Even Al Jazeera had confirmed the leak's authenticity. It was undeniable now. The death of Noura al-Masri had not been an accident. It had been an intelligence operation approved at the highest levels. And Meghan Markle had once tried to stop it from within. A young analyst looked up from his monitor. "Sir, public sentiment is shifting. Hashtag Justice for Noura is trending in 40 countries. The Prime Minister's office has requested a full response from the palace." A silence fell, and the director muttered, "There's no response that will work. Not anymore." In Buckingham Palace, Prince Richard watched the headlines with frozen fury. Aide after aide rushed in, handing him printouts, videos, legal memos. He swept them away. They think they can destroy this monarchy with words, he said. Sir, with respect, one advisor said carefully, this isn't just words. These are war crimes. Our allies are distancing themselves. Even the Americans. I made them, Richard snapped. I gave them access, funding, legitimacy. They owe us. But Meghan is an enemy of the state, he barked, and should be treated as such. He turned to his intelligence officer. Activate Zero Protocol. The officer paled. Sir, that's only for due. Back in Geneva, Meghan and Sora packed the last of their gear. Zero Protocol. Sora said, her voice low. That means no arrest, no trial, just ... vanish. I know, Meghan said. Outside footsteps began echoing in the stairwell. Meghan moved to the window. A figure stood across the street, holding a phone. Then a soft chime. Her phone buzzed. Harry, stand down, I'm coming. She almost laughed. Course he is. Sora gave her a look. That's not good news. It's probably not. Meghan said, but maybe it's not about survival anymore. Maybe it's about finishing. This. She opened her laptop, pulled up a new file. A video message, unreleased, personal, direct. She hit record to the world watching this. I don't know if I'm still alive when you see it. But you need to understand, Helix was never about one girl. It was about power. Who gets to hold it? Who gets to silence those who fight it? I tried to walk away. I really did. But I was born in a story I didn't write. And maybe it's time I rewrite the ending. She paused. My name is Meghan Markle. And I am not afraid anymore. She clicked upload. Suddenly, the power cut. The safe house went black. Sora grabbed her sidearm. Meghan reached for the hard drive. Flashlights outside. The sound of a battering ram preparing. We're out of time, Sora said. A beat. Then an explosion rocked the front entrance. Shouts, gunfire, chaos. But from the smoke came a familiar voice. Meghan. Harry appeared flanked by a small team of rogue security operatives, faces hidden, weapons raised. Get her out, he shouted. They pulled Meghan and Sora through the back exit just seconds before the entire room erupted in flames. A week later, the Helix files dominated global news. A royal commission was forced into session. Protests flooded the streets of London, New York, Paris, and Cairo. Buckingham Palace was silent. No denials, no admissions, just fear. But from exile, Meghan's message had been clear. She was not going to disappear, not again. In a secret location surrounded by old reporters, truth seekers, and whistleblowers, Meghan sat with Sora. We done? She asked. Sora leaned back, smirking. Not even close. On a nearby screen, new files, loaded related operations, more victims, more secrets. The room hummed with the energy of quiet revolution. Meghan took a breath and opened the next file. The desert sky above Morocco glowed with fading sunlight as a convoy of black SUVs moved across a restricted airfield. No markings, no flags, just purpose. Inside the lead vehicle, Prince Harry sat in silence. Next to him, Meghan stared straight. Ahead, her face unreadable. The Helix files had gone public. Global reaction had exploded, some in support, some in denial, and others demanding blood. But the fight wasn't over. Not when the man behind it all, Prince Richard, was still untouched. Are you ready for this? Harry asked softly. Meghan turned to him. I was born ready, just didn't know it until now. Back in London, chaos spread like wildfire. The Royal Commission hearings had begun. Names were named. Budgets traced. Covert programs dissected. But Richard refused to step down. The palace denied everything, calling the leaks fabrications fueled by American radicalism. Conservative. Media echoed the line, but the world had seen too much. Then came the whistleblowers. 3 former MI6 agents, 1 American general, and a former aide to the Prime Minister, all testifying in secret. And the final blow. A signed memo from Richard himself, approving Operation Nura. That document changed everything. The British public turned. Parliament convened an emergency vote of no confidence, not just in Richard, but in the monarchy itself. In Morocco, Meghan and Harry were preparing for their last move. Sora met them on the tarmac. "It's happening," she said. "Interpol's ready? The ICC is watching. If Richard tries to flee, he's done." Harry checked his watch. "He won't flee." Meghan raised an eyebrow. "He'll stand his ground," Harry continued. "He thinks he's untouchable. That's his weakness." Sora handed Meghan a flash drive. "Then we hit him where he's blind." "What is it?" Meghan asked. Sora smiled. "The final piece. Audio recordings, meetings with arms brokers, discussions of drone strikes, its own voice approving every step, including your surveillance." Meghan closed her fingers around it. "Then let's give the world the final chapter." Back in London, Richard was preparing for a televised address. He stood in a private studio beneath Buckingham Palace, surrounded by advisors, legal counsel, and a single camera. He adjusted his tie. "We begin in 30. But before he could speak, the feed changed. The screen behind him meant to show the Union Jack cut to black. Then Meghan's face appeared. It wasn't a live feed. It was pre-recorded, but the message was immediate. "To the British people, you deserve the truth." The audio recordings played. Richard's voice, crisp and undeniable. The studio froze. Advisors ran for the broadcast controls, but it was too late. The signal was hijacked globally, on every major channel. Meghan's final words echoed across televisions in 5 continents. "This isn't vengeance. It's reckoning. For the silenced. For Nura. For those who were told their lives were expendable. No more." Outside the palace gates, a crowd had already formed. Protesters, journalists, survivors. When the video ended, they didn't cheer. They stood still, stunned by the enormity of what they'd witnessed. Then someone yelled, "Arrest him." And the chant began. Inside the palace, Richard looked to his chief of staff. "Get the car." The aide didn't move. "You're finished," he said quietly. "Even the military won't protect you now." Hours later, Prince Richard was arrested by British police. The image of him being escorted out in handcuffs became the most shared photo in the world within 48 hours. The monarchy suspended all public duties. A national referendum was called. And for the first time in modern history, Britain, seriously, debated life beyond the crown. From an undisclosed location in Kenya, Meghan watched the news unfold. She didn't smile. There was no joy in justice, just relief. Harry sat beside her, holding her hand. "You did it," he whispered. She shook her head. "We did it, and it's not over." On the table in front of them, more files waited. Names, countries, programs. Sora entered with coffee and a quiet nod. New intel from Cairo, the same operation. Different names. Meghan looked at the names. "Let's get to work." In a CNN newsroom, a veteran journalist spoke to camera. What began as a tense interview on a talk show has become one of the most significant political reckonings in British history. Meghan Markle, once tabloid fodder, now stands as a global symbol of whistleblowing and resistance. And yet, many still ask what happens next. Back in the Kenyan compound, Meghan opened her laptop. A blank document stared back at her. Title, Operation Redemption. She began to type. And somewhere in the world, a secret trembled. Because she was not done. Not yet, not ever.